Hi Libras, Trishna here. Welcome to your August 2019 Success and Abundance reading. So what I'm feeling for you is I feel like you're in a really good, happy place, but I also feel like you're very calm. So I feel like maybe you've achieved something in your career or you've had some kind of career move, or maybe this applies to relationships, but something good has happened for you. You've made some kind of good shift, or a good shift has happened to you in some area of your life and it's going really well, but it's not like you're ecstatic at a super high vibrational level, like happiness level. You're kind of relaxed about it. It feels very good, very comfortable. You're at a very comfortably happy place. And I feel like that's just such a nice place to be. It's like it feels more secure, it feels calmer, you can be more relaxed, and yet you also feel really good. It's like this really nice, content, blissful place where you're just happy to be where you are. You don't, we always want more things, but in this moment, there's not a lot more that you want. Like, you're just happy to enjoy this moment. There may be things that you want, but you're happy to enjoy where you're at right now and just live it up and just really feel it. And then you can move on to achieving the other things that you want. But you're just in this really nice place. So that's really good. I feel like you've been moving forward on something. So maybe it's still whatever we're talking about. You've moved forward in some way and you're feeling productive. And I think that whenever we work on something new, or we learn something new, or we work on something bigger than we've ever worked on before, or we work on something bigger than ourselves, there can be fears of failure. And I feel like for you, maybe there's a fear of failure. I really would rather call it more of a fear of incompletion. I feel like maybe you've started something, you're learning something, you've started a new project, you're working on something bigger than yourself, whatever it is. Maybe you started a new relationship that's bigger, it like has a bigger impact on you, or it means more to you than any other relationship you've ever had before. There's something different that you're working on, and I feel like you have that fear of incompletion. So it's not like you believe you can achieve it if you just boil it down to the bare skills that are required. But it might be so big or so new that it feels like even though you have all the skills, it's so big that can you ever do it all? Could you ever see it through the end? Could you ever handle the full capacity of it all? And so I feel like that's more of an underlying fear that you have. And I feel like, for you, you may not agree with that. You may feel like, no, I'm not really worried about that. Sure, maybe those thoughts cross my mind, but I'm not worried about it. I don't really feel it. And I think that that's because mentally, like I was saying before, you have the skills, you can do it, you have the capabilities. So, like, on a mental level, whenever you have these fears of, like, can I do it all? It's so big. Like, that's your emotional feeling. Can I do it all? It's so big. Your mental feeling is like, of course I can. Why am I even thinking about this? I just need to do it. So I feel like there's like kind of a back and forth. You may not feel like it's a back and forth. You may feel like your mentality of like, of course I can do it. Why am I even thinking about this? Weighs out stronger, because anytime you have this emotional situation, you kind of shut it down. You're like, of course I can. Why am I even worried about that? And so I feel like mentally you're in a good place, and I think that's really good, but I do think that it pays to address the emotional side of things. And I feel like with you, Libra, you can be either or. So sometimes you can be very mentally focused and kind of not really notice the emotions that are going on within you. And then other times you can be very emotional and not really notice the mental thoughts that you're having. And so, that kind of puts you at odds with yourself. And so I really do think that right now it pays to address the emotional sides of things that are going on within you, because at the end of the day they say that we are all emotional beings and we make all of our decisions emotionally. We just use logic to justify the emotional decision that we've made. And so I think it really pays to focus on the emotions too, and to not discount them, because that is the underlying driver of everything that we do, especially like in the long term. So you want to make sure that that is in a good place, or wrapped up, or being managed, so that you're always moving in the direction that you would like to be moving in, and that will bring you the success that you're trying to bring into your life and that you're trying to achieve. So what I'm feeling for you is the way for you to do that, just because you can be so back and forth on things, where like sometimes the mental aspect of you is emphasized, sometimes the emotional, and then vice versa, is I feel like because you're in a really good mental place, that's good. Like, we should emphasize that. And so whenever you're in that place, that's fine, but just try to pay attention to whenever you have these little fears of it's so big, or I don't know if I can do it all, or will people appreciate what I've done? Anytime you have these little fears about whatever it is that you're working on, I want you to write it down on a piece of paper and write each fear down on its own separate piece of paper. So you may have one fear in a day and be like, in the morning you're like, la la la, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I don't know if I can handle all this. Just write it down in that moment. And then, some days you may have three, so you write it down and you write each one down on a separate piece of paper, and you can do this next step in that moment if possible. I think that's the best thing. But let's say if you're at work and this is just not something that you can do in that moment, just keep those pieces of paper handy and keep it with you, and then do this the next moment when you're alone or by yourself. So first step is write down whatever fears or doubts or insecurities or whatever the situation is. Whatever you have, write it down, each one on its own separate piece of paper, as many as is needed in that day, as few as are needed in that day. Just write each one down on its own separate piece of paper. Then the first chance that you get, whether it's right then or maybe later in the day, try to do it within 24 hours. What you do is I want you to read what that fear is, because you need to acknowledge that it's there. You need to honor that it exists. And only when you do that can you let it go. Because a lot of times we have subconscious thoughts that we're kind of pushing down and ignoring, and when we do that, it doesn't feel honored, and it stays stuck, and it continues to affect us. But the moment that it knows that we honor it, that it is in our awareness, that we respect that it's there, it feels free to let go, because the subconscious is always trying to protect you. And if you ignore it, it feels like it needs to stick around. These beliefs feel like they need to stick around. But if you give those negative beliefs the time of day, your subconscious feels like, hey, I've been heard. We're on the same page. I can let this go. I know you, conscious brain, are going to take care of this, because now you know there's something to take care of. So I want you to read out what it is, and then I want you to fold a piece of paper and either rip it up, or I want you to burn it, whichever one works for you, depending on how you feel and your situation and that kind of thing. So, and then as you rip it up, or maybe just before you burn it or rip it up, you fold it up, say, this isn't true, or not true, something along those lines of this isn't true. And then you rip it up, and then you burn it. And so that's you basically addressing that you have the subconscious thought. Then you fold it and you say, it's not true. So you're telling yourself, hey, I honor you, and I want to make the conscious decision that this isn't true, and I want to reprogram my subconscious thought. So I've released my subconscious thought. I want to now reprogram it and say that's not true. What that wasn't true, so that now I can allow in a better thought, a more accurate thought, which is your mental thoughts, but you don't have to do anything about that. So that's just what's happening there. And then you rip it up to release it, and that's all you need to do. It's like you're just releasing, letting go of that negative thought, and making room for a more accurate, truer thought. And I kind of want to explain a little bit more around the subconscious brain and why something like that works, because it may seem like, why am I doing that? So on the one hand, it's you telepathically telling your subconscious, training your subconscious that a better thought, a truer thought is available to you than what you are now letting go of. So there's that. But then the other thing is like, in the media, there's always this talk about the Illuminati and the occult and all that. And, they have this symbolism that is subconscious to us that we don't always realize unless we've learned what it is. That's always going on around us in movies or whatever, whatever they say about that. And so you may wonder, like, well, if I don't even know what that means, how could it even work on me? And the answer to that is, even though you've only been in this lifetime and you've only learned certain things, maybe you've never seen these ancient symbols before. You never learned about that. So why would it affect you? Even though you haven't learned about that in this lifetime, we all have reincarnations. So one, you've probably had a past lifetime where that was a symbol that maybe you learned at that point in time. I ran out of space. So the first reason why subconscious programming and symbolism works is because one, even though you may not have seen one of the symbols or any of the symbols in this lifetime, even though you may not have come across it, you may have come across some or many of those symbols in a past lifetime, and those carry over through. And part of the reason for that is because of reason number two, why subconscious programming and symbolism works is because we have a collective subconscious that it's collective subconscious connection that is going on at all times. It crosses all time and space. So it goes from our past to our present to our future. It spans across all animals. And so even if you didn't experience a symbol in this lifetime or even a past lifetime, there are other people that have in the past and in the present. You know, maybe they were from different civilizations than you've experienced, and ancient civilizations than you've experienced, or maybe they've been drawn to ancient civilizations in this lifetime that you haven't been, and so they have an understanding of the symbolism, and because they do, and it's in the subconscious realm, the subconscious field, even though you have no connection with it, you kind of do because you're connected to the same subconscious realm. And then this also leads to number three, the third reason why symbolism and the subconscious programming works is because because we have this subconscious field that we're all a part of, that you may not know something but somebody else in the subconscious field does, so therefore you know it. We can also send out information and telepathically program each other, and so if somebody is using like occult symbols, they can program, just them knowing it and then putting out into the world kind of programs the rest of us to be receptive to it and to kind of understand it, even if consciously we're not aware of all of that. So that's why I think this method of reprogramming yourself is really effective. So, I like using this stuff to help myself and to help you guys help yourself. So, whenever you write down, whenever you pay attention to what subconscious thought is coming to you, whether it's yours, your own, or somebody else sharing it to you, and then you write it down and bring it to your awareness, it loses its power because now you know what's going on. Like, you have attention to it, and then also your subconscious now feels safe because it feels like, hey, we're on the same page, so it releases it. And then whenever you say not true and you rip it up symbolically, you're accessing symbolism and that kind of thing, and you're using it to help yourself to negate those negative beliefs that you're having, so you can make room for more positive ones that you can either embed in yourself or just allow to come naturally to you. I feel like you don't really need to embed it in yourself. I feel like your mentality has been pretty positive, so whatever gaps you have through this negating and this ripping up and this being aware of negative thoughts will be filled in with the positive mentality thoughts that you already have. So your subconscious right now is pretty prime for programming yourself in positive ways. You just have to release the old stuff. So that's why I think that this will be very effective for you. So I hope you try that. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you try it and how it works for you, and how much better you feel, and the positive thoughts that start feeling a lot more natural and like kind of hit you at deeper layers. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. I hope I earned your like and your subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.